When you inadvertently color code your TBR for the month, all of the books, well, except for a few audiobooks that I listened to, but the majority of the books I read this month were blue, and I did not plan that. Everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I am doing my August wrap up. I read a total of 9 books in August, which tends to be my average reading for each month. So I tend to be getting about 8 or 9 books, 10 for a good month, which seems to be my average for the year. So I'm doing pretty good. I am 2 books behind on my Goodreads challenge, but I'm trying not to pressure myself. Plus, I have a reread plan coming up for like November and October that will definitely give that a boost. August was also the kickoff for the Booktubeathon, well, the end of July, beginning of August. So right at the beginning of August, I already had like 6 books read. I finished my 7th book after the Booktubeathon, but right at the first week of August, I had 7 books read already this month. So you can tell already how the rest of the month went for reading. But without further ado, let's jump into the books and what my star ratings were for them. I decided not to go into too much detail for books that I plan on doing reviews for, but if you want to see any more information or a review for a specific book that you see on my TBRs, let me know in the comments below and I will plan a review for any books that you guys request. The first book I kicked off the Booktubeathon with was the audiobook for Catalyst, a Rogue One story by John Lucio. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's what we all say. This was an audiobook I listened to via Scribd. I really like the Star Wars audiobooks. They have sound effects, great narrators. The narrators for these were amazing. I almost thought the narrator was the actor for Galen Erso because the voice was so close. They even did Krennic's voice very well. It just felt like you were watching an extension of the movie. This was so much fun. It was kind of a prequel to Rogue One, and you guys know how much I liked Rogue One, and it was just really cool to see how Galen and Lyra got to where they were and how they got kind of tied up with Krennic and all of those things. It looped into the Clone Wars and into some of the other aspects of Star Wars that I don't know too much about, so that was a lot of fun to get kind of this all-around story picture and everything connecting. Overall, I gave it a 4-star rating. It was such a fun audiobook to go through and such a great story. Like I said, overall, the story is absolutely amazing. If you're a fan of Rogue One, I highly recommend it. Also, highly recommend the audiobook. It was just a fun ride. I loved it. I then finished off the Herringford and Watts mystery series as they currently are by finishing The White Feather Murders by Rachel McMillan. This is the 3rd book, but according to Rachel McMillan, might not be the final book of the Herringford and Watts mystery series. I read this one at work for the Booktubeathon, so I would read this one on my break. I really enjoyed the characters overall. I like the way Rachel writes mysteries, that it's not over-encompassing of the story, but it's really brought into the characters in the story. A lot of the events of these White Feather Murders were really brought into the personal lives of Jem and Mirinda, so it really brought out some of the character development for these beautiful cast of characters, and I loved following them. The way Rachel writes a mystery, I kind of get those aha moments as the characters get the aha moments, or you're kind of figuring out as the characters are, which is nice to not say, oh, this person did it. I mean, there was points where I was like, I bet it's this guy, but I don't know for sure. And then everything comes together. You get the aha moment at the same time the characters do. So it's a lot of fun to really interact that way with her stories. Another thing I really like about Rachel's writing, and I'll mention that in another book that I'm going to talk about as well, is her attention to history and her just love and passion for history that you can catch in her writing, as well as her love and passion for Toronto, where she lives, and just cities that she enjoys overall. You can tell what her passions are when you're reading her books, and I really enjoy that about her writing. Next book for the Booktubeathon I picked up was Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. This was, I think, the Gorgeous Spine challenge. So I picked up Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. This was a very fast read. It was relatively enjoyable. I am really surprised of how well the cartoon movie adaptation did when I was a kid, because that's the only adaptation I grew up with. I never read the book as a child. So I'm really surprised of how close they were with the movie. but the story is pretty basic, so you don't really have a lot of room to deviate or to add to unless you want to make it longer. Overall, I gave it 3-star ratings. It was cute, it was entertaining, it was a quick read. It didn't overall wow me or really make me wish I had read it as a kid or anything, because I had grown up with the story. It was just overall a very cute, fun, quick read. I then picked up my so far favorite Jane Austen novel, Northanger Abbey. And I did this for the book to movie adaptation challenge, where you read the book and then watch the movie adaptation. I watched the Masterpiece Theater edition with Felicity Day. I think that's her name. Oh my gosh. Jin from Rogue One is in Northanger Abbey, and that's the one I watched. Felicity Day. I'm messing up her name, I know it. Anyway, I watched that movie adaptation because I love it. I also really enjoy Northanger Abbey. I've read this one before. I listened to the audiobook on Scribed. It was just so cute. I love the banter between her and Mr. Tilney. I love that he doesn't make fun of Catherine for enjoying her novels. I also liked Mr. Thorpe, who is a complete idiot, and I loved hating him. He was so good to hate. And I just like how he's made to feel an idiot. That whole Thorpe family is just special. But it was just a fun story. I relate so much to Catherine as a character, and she's definitely one of my favorite Austen heroines. I gave it a 4-star rating. It's still not like a 5-star for me, but it's still one of my favorite Jane Austen so far. I have yet to read Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. I then listened to The Runaway King by Jennifer A. Nelson on audiobook, and this was the green book or green on the cover challenge for Booktubeathon. This was not as good as The False Prince. It still was a very fun story, very clean, a lot of good action. The characters were still really good and good development of the characters. It just had a lot going on, and it went somewhere completely different and odd in a way, so the story was kind of, it just felt disjointed in a bit. So I'm trying to figure out where the series is going, but overall it was a really fun, light read. It's still 110% clean. I really enjoy Jennifer A. Nelson's writing. I'm picking up everything this author has written and have yet to have an issue with anything. Overall, I gave it a 4-star rating. It was still a really well-written book, good attention to detail, great fun characters, and a clean read that I would recommend for middle grade and young adult. I then listened to The Dollmaker of Cracow by R.M. Romero. This was a unplanned Booktubeathon pickup. I picked it up because it is a middle grade book and it was a very short-ish audiobook for me to listen to. So I threw that in for the Booktubeathon and bawled my eyes out. This is the most beautiful World War II setting book I have ever read, and I am planning on doing a full review of this because I was weeping at the end because of how beautiful this book was. And it centers around a doll maker in Poland, and this doll comes to life, and you got this beautiful magic of these innocence of dolls, and she's from the doll kingdom and everything, and it's just a beautiful way of telling a horrific story to the middle grade age group. I thought it was stunning. I still would hesitant for some of the younger audience because it ended, it's World War II. It ended harshly because it is dealing with a very harsh subject matter, but it was still a very beautiful way of telling the story and continuing it on for the next generations to know what happened in that time period. Overall, I gave it a 5-star rating. The book, the story, the characters was beautiful. My only complaint was the audiobook. The accents got so thick sometimes that I could not understand what the narrator was saying. It was just very thick. There was that very thick Polish, Yiddish, and German accents that were just so laid on to the fact, like this one German character, I could not understand him at some points. So that was my only complaint, was just the narrator with the audiobook. But everything else I would give just 5 stars to the whole thing. Like I said, for younger audiences, I would still give a heads up for content because it is still pretty harsh. I would maybe read it with your kids and go through it with them. I was just overwhelmed by emotion at the end of it. I started this book during Booktubeathon, but I didn't get to finish it, and that is No Matter How Improbable by Angela Missouri. This is book 3 in the Portia Adams series, and this is following the granddaughter of Watson from the Sherlock and Watson duo, and you find out more about her. I'm not going to give it away because it's kind of a spoiler. So it's in a world where Sherlock and Watson were real people rather than fictional people, and you're following Watson's granddaughter, and she's kind of have those traits that her grandfather had and gets caught up in mysteries, and you're just following her through another series of mysteries, and it was just a lot of fun. It wasn't amazing, but I think I was bogged down by the fact that I read the Herringford and Watts series at the same time, so it felt really similar to me, so I only gave it a 3-star rating. But I still really enjoy the series. Very clean, very fun. If you're looking for a fun girl power novel with a good Sherlock twist to it, highly recommend it. I then continued on to my Harry Potter reread with The Goblet of Fire. I buddy read this with Felicia, but I think I left my buddy behind in the dust, and I think Felicia's still working on it. I'm either very behind on buddy reads and my buddies are like really ahead of me, or I am really ahead of my buddies and I don't wait for them. So I kind of sort of buddy read this with Felicia, but it's great to read it at the same time she is, because she's reading it for the first time and kind of talking about, you know, what part did you get to, and I already know what to expect and I just want to hear her reaction to what part she's at. So that's a lot of fun to do that with somebody. So I'm going to keep going with the Harry Potter reread. I really do like The Goblet of Fire. It is one of my favorite books. I gave it a 5-star rating. I still like The Prisoner of Azkaban better, but this one was really good. I, of course, just love Harry Potter, and I thought I was struggling more with physically reading books, but I plowed through this one. It was so fast read for me, and I was just really excited to get physically through a book as quick as I did. But these are relatively quick reads, so, you know. Last but not least, I managed to get through one of my review books because it had an audiobook available on Scribd, and that was Murder at the Flamingo by Rachel McMillan, book 1 in the Van Buren and DeLuca mystery series. I really enjoyed this. I'm so grateful for Thomas Nelson for sending me a copy of this. This was so much fun. This follows Hamish DeLuca, who is Jem and Ray's son from the Herringford and Watts series, and it's 20 years later, so we're in like the 30s, Prohibition period, right before World War II. We're kind of in that time frame, kind of Great Gatsby scene. It was a lot of fun. So this follows Hamish during the glitz and glam of his cousin's opening of a sophisticated nightclub, and he kind of gets tagged along in all of that glamour that goes along with it. Also follows Regina, or Reggie Van Buren, who escapes her high society life to kind of make a way for herself and kind of take her own independence into her hand, and she gets caught up in this glitz and glam nightclub as well by being hired as the secretary for Hamish's cousin's nightclub. Again, with Rachel's writing, you can tell her passion and exuberance for certain aspects. I'm going to be doing a full review of this, so I'll mention more of it in my review. Overall, I gave it a 4-star rating, solid read, very clean. There's a couple of like alcohol and smoking references, but there really isn't anything otherwise that I could mention. There, of course, is a murder, so there is some violence in there, and then some references to like the Al Capone kind of gang like system, or like the gangster system at that time period. But that's the only really heads up I could give you guys. Overall, like I said, solid good read, a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying Rachel's writing and so glad to have another series from her. Those were all the books I read in August. I do have, like I said, at least 2 reviews out of the stack of books coming out. If you guys want to see some other reviews, let me know in the comments below. I'll see if I can accommodate you guys for that. I also want to hear from you guys what your favorite book for August was, so let me know in the comments below what you guys read and loved in August. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!